My friend, I want to speak to your heart today. Some of you are tired. Some of you are discouraged. Some of you have prayed and prayed, yet nothing seems to change. You've whispered in the dark, I can't go on anymore. You've looked at your past and thought, I've failed too many times. You've looked at your present and said, I don't see a way forward. But hear this clearly, do not give up. God is not finished with you. You may feel forgotten, but God has not forgotten your name. You may feel abandoned, but God has never left your side. You may feel broken, but God specializes in restoring what looks beyond repair. Throughout history, God has used people who were tired, weak, and unsure, people who thought they were at the end, only to discover they were at the beginning. When you think your story is over, God says, I'm just getting started. The enemy wants you to believe the lie that your best days are behind you, but God declares that your future is still in His hands. You may feel invisible right now, as if your life no longer matters to anyone. Days pass, prayers seem unanswered, and it feels like heaven has gone quiet. You look around and wonder how others seem to be noticed, blessed, remembered, while you feel overlooked and forgotten. But that feeling is not the truth. It is only a shadow cast by pain and exhaustion. The truth is that God has never lost sight of you, not for a single moment. Long before you ever called out to Him, He knew your name. He knew your struggles, your fears, your disappointments, and the weight you carry in your heart. You may feel like just another face in the crowd, another voice lost in the noise of the world, but to God, you are known personally. He does not see you as a number or a problem to be managed. He sees you as His creation, formed with intention, watched over with care, and held with love. There are moments when loneliness convinces you that no one understands what you are going through. You may sit in a room full of people and still feel completely alone. Yet even in that quiet isolation, God is present. He sees the tears you hide from others. He hears the prayers you can barely put into words. When your strength runs out and all you can offer is a broken whisper, God listens just as closely as when you speak with confidence. You may believe that your past mistakes have caused God to turn away from you. Shame has a way of convincing the heart that it is unworthy of attention or grace. But God's love is not fragile, and it is not withdrawn because of failure. He does not forget you because you stumbled. He does not erase your name because you fell short. Instead, He draws nearer, ready to restore what you think has been lost forever. Sometimes life becomes so heavy that you begin to question your value. You wonder if your prayers matter, if your obedience matters, if your perseverance matters. But every step you take in faith, even the smallest one, is seen. Every act of endurance, every moment you choose hope over despair, is known to God. Nothing in your life is unnoticed. Nothing is insignificant in His eyes. There are seasons when God feels distant, not because He has moved away, but because He is working in ways you cannot yet see. Just as a seed grows hidden beneath the soil, God often does His deepest work in silence. During those times, it is easy to believe you have been forgotten. Yet the very fact that you are still standing, still breathing, still seeking, is evidence that God is sustaining you. God remembers the promises He has spoken over your life, even when you have forgotten them yourself. He remembers the dreams you buried out of disappointment. He remembers the prayers you stopped praying because waiting became too painful. His timing may not match your expectations, but His faithfulness never fails. What feels like delay is not neglect. What feels like silence is not absence. When the world overlooks you and your heart feels unseen, hold on to this truth. You are fully known and deeply loved. God sees where you are today, and He knows where He is leading you tomorrow. Your life is not lost in the crowd, and your pain is not ignored. You are remembered, you are seen, and you are never forgotten. There comes a moment in life when everything within you says that this is the end. You have tried, you have waited, and you have hoped, yet the outcome looks nothing like what you prayed for. The door closed, the opportunity slipped away, the relationship ended, or the strength you once had seems to be gone. In those moments, it is easy to believe that your story has reached its final chapter. But what feels like an ending is often a turning point that you cannot yet recognize. Human vision is limited to the present pain, but God sees the full picture. You see the loss. God sees the lesson being formed. You see the delay. God sees the character being shaped. You see defeat. God sees endurance growing within you. What appears to be failure is often the ground where faith is strengthened and trust is deepened. God is not confined by your setbacks, and He is not surprised by them either. Many times, the struggle is not meant to destroy you, but to prepare you. Preparation is rarely comfortable. It stretches you, humbles you, and forces you to depend on something greater than yourself. If success came without resistance, you would never develop the strength to carry it. If answers came immediately, you would never learn patience. God allows seasons of difficulty, not because He delights in your pain, but because He understands what those seasons can produce in you. When doors close, it is tempting to see them as rejection. But closed doors often serve as protection, keeping you from paths that would harm you or distract you from your true purpose. God's refusal is sometimes His mercy in disguise. You may mourn what you lost, unaware that God is saving you from something you cannot yet see. The delay you resent today may be the very reason you stand strong tomorrow. There are times when progress feels invisible. You are moving forward, but nothing seems to change. Day after day, you show up, you remain faithful, yet the situation looks the same. In those moments, discouragement whispers that your efforts are pointless. But growth often happens beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. Just as roots must grow deep before a tree can stand tall, God is establishing a foundation within you that will support what is coming next. The pain you are experiencing now is not a permanent address. It is a temporary season meant to shape you, not define you. God never wastes a season. Every disappointment, every struggle, every unanswered prayer is being woven into a greater purpose. Even when you cannot connect the pieces, God is arranging them with care. You may feel stuck between what was and what has not yet come, unsure of where you belong or what to do next. That in-between space can feel unbearable. Yet it is often in that space that clarity is formed. God uses the waiting to realign your heart, refine your motives, and prepare you for what lies ahead. The pause is not punishment, it is preparation. Do not measure your life by a single chapter. Your story is still unfolding, and the current struggle is not the final word. What you see as a setback may be the very thing that positions you for growth, strength, and deeper faith. God is still at work, even here, and this moment is not the end. It is part of the process that leads you forward. There are seasons when God feels silent, when prayers rise but no answer seems to return. You speak, you wait, and all you hear is quiet. In those moments, doubt begins to whisper that nothing is happening, that God has turned away or stopped listening. Silence can feel heavier than pain, because at least pain reminds you that something is happening. Silence makes you question everything. Yet silence does not mean absence, and it never means inactivity. God often does His deepest work where it cannot be seen. Just as a builder lays a foundation underground before a structure ever rises above the surface, God works beneath what the eye can measure. You may see no movement, no sign, no change, but unseen work is still work. What you call silence may simply be God working in ways that require time, patience, and trust. There are moments when immediate answers would actually hinder what God is doing. If everything were explained too soon, faith would not be required. If every step were revealed, growth would be shallow. God's silence often invites you to lean in, to trust Him not because you see results, but because you know His character. Faith is not built on constant reassurance. It is formed when you choose to believe even when reassurance is absent. Silence also exposes what the heart truly depends on. When blessings are flowing, it is easy to feel confident. But when nothing seems to move, the heart is tested. Do you trust God only when He speaks? Or do you trust Him even when He is quiet? In those quiet seasons, God is strengthening your faith, teaching you to rely on who He is, not just on what He gives. You may assume that because you feel nothing, nothing is happening, but feelings are unreliable guides. They rise and fall with circumstances, exhaustion, and fear. God's work is not limited by your emotions. He is present when you feel strong, and He is present when you feel empty. Even when your heart feels numb and your prayers feel weak, God remains faithful. Often, God's silence is an invitation to maturity. It moves you beyond dependence on signs and sensations into a deeper relationship rooted in trust. Just as a child must eventually learn to walk without holding a parent's hand, there are moments when God allows you to step forward without immediate confirmation. Not to abandon you, but to strengthen you. There are countless moments when God is arranging details you know nothing about, conversations you are not part of, delays that protect you, changes that redirect your path. While you wait, God is aligning people, timing, and circumstances in ways that will make sense later. What feels like stillness is often divine coordination taking place beyond your awareness. Silence also teaches you to listen differently. When God is quiet, you begin to notice His presence in smaller ways, in endurance, in unexpected peace, in strength you did not know you had. Sometimes the miracle is not the change of circumstances, but the calm He gives you while you walk through them. That calm is not accidental. It is evidence of His work within you. Do not mistake silence for abandonment. God is near even when He is quiet. He is shaping you, preparing you, and strengthening you in ways that words alone could never accomplish. The work happening in silence is often the work that lasts the longest. There are moments when pain feels meaningless, when suffering seems unfair and unnecessary. You look at what you have endured and wonder why it had to be this way. The nights of tears, the disappointments, the losses, the unanswered prayers can leave you asking whether any of it mattered. Pain has a way of convincing the heart that it serves no purpose, that it is simply something to survive and forget. But pain is never wasted when it is held in God's hands. Every tear you have cried has been seen. Every burden you have carried has been known. Nothing you have endured has gone unnoticed. God does not overlook your suffering, and He does not dismiss your wounds. What feels unbearable to you is never insignificant to Him. Pain may shape your days, but it does not define your worth, and it does not escape God's attention. Often, pain becomes the place where compassion is born. The hurt you have experienced allows you to understand others in ways you never could before. You notice brokenness more easily, you listen more carefully, you love more deeply. What once wounded you becomes a source of empathy, enabling you to comfort others with sincerity and understanding. God transforms personal pain into a gift that reaches beyond yourself. Pain also refines the heart. It strips away illusions of control and self-sufficiency, reminding you of your need for God. In seasons of comfort, it is easy to rely on strength, resources, or plans. But pain humbles the soul and teaches dependence. It draws you closer to God, not because He causes suffering, but because He meets you within it. In that closeness, faith deepens and trust becomes more genuine. There are lessons learned in pain that cannot be learned any other way. Strength is forged when you are forced to stand, even when you feel weak. Patience is developed when waiting hurts. Hope becomes real when it survives despair. These qualities are not formed in ease, but in endurance. What feels like breaking is often shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded than before. Pain also changes perspective. It reveals what truly matters and what does not. Many things that once seemed important lose their power in the face of suffering. The heart becomes clearer, more focused, less distracted by temporary concerns. God uses pain to realign priorities, drawing your attention back to what lasts beyond the moment. Even the wounds that leave scars are not wasted. Scars are reminders of healing, proof that pain did not have the final word. They tell a story of survival, of restoration, of God's ability to bring life out of brokenness. What once hurt you deeply can become evidence of how far you have come and how faithful God has been. You may not understand now how your pain fits into a greater purpose. You may wish you could erase certain moments from your life, but God has a way of weaving even the darkest experiences into something meaningful. He does not promise that pain will always make sense immediately, but He promises that it will never be wasted. What you are enduring today may one day become the very testimony that strengthens someone else. Your perseverance may inspire hope where despair once lived. Your healing may remind others that restoration is possible. In God's hands, pain is transformed, redeemed, and used for purposes far greater than the suffering itself. There is a quiet fear that settles into the heart after failure, a fear that says you have gone too far, fallen too hard, or made too many mistakes to be used again. You replay your past and measure yourself by your worst moments. Regret becomes heavy, and shame convinces you that you are no longer qualified for anything good. But failure does not cancel God's calling, and falling does not remove His grace from your life. God has never built His plans on human perfection. If He did, no one would stand. From the beginning, He has worked through flawed, weak, and broken people, not because their failures impressed Him, but because their surrender did. Your mistakes may surprise you, but they do not surprise God. He knew your weaknesses before you ever faced them, and He still chose to love you, call you, and walk with you. Many people confuse discipline with disqualification. When life corrects you or consequences follow your choices, you may assume that God has rejected you. But correction is not rejection. A loving parent disciplines not to abandon, but to restore. God's desire has never been to push you away, but to draw you back, to realign your heart, and to continue His work in you. Shame tells you to hide. God invites you to come closer. Shame says you are finished. God says you are forgiven. The voice of guilt focuses on what you did. God focuses on who you are becoming. When you fall, God does not turn His back and walk away. He reaches out His hand, ready to lift you up again, not with anger, but with mercy. You may believe that others will never forget what you did, and perhaps they won't. But God is not limited by human memory. He is a God of restoration, not labels. He does not define you by a single chapter of your life. Your past may explain some things, but it does not determine your future. God sees beyond what was and into what can still be. There are moments when failure becomes a teacher rather than a sentence. It humbles you, softens you, and deepens your dependence on God. Success without failure can lead to pride, but failure surrendered to God leads to wisdom. What once broke your confidence can rebuild your character. God does not waste even your mistakes when you place them in His hands. You may feel unworthy to pray, unfit to hope, or afraid to believe again. But God does not wait for you to feel worthy before He works. Grace is not earned by perfection, it is received through humility. When you come honestly, with a repentant heart and open hands, God meets you with forgiveness and strength. Falling does not mean you are finished. It means you are human, and being human is the very reason grace exists. God's plans are not fragile, and they are not destroyed by your weakness. He is patient, persistent, and faithful to complete what He began in you. Do not let yesterday's failures steal today's faith. Get up again. Take the next step, even if it feels small. God is not looking for a flawless record. He is looking for a willing heart. And as long as your heart is still turning toward Him, you are not disqualified. You are still being shaped for what is ahead. There is a tendency in life to measure God by what we see, what we feel, and what we experience. When circumstances look favorable, it is easy to say, God is faithful. When life brings unexpected challenges, unanswered prayers, or delays, the heart begins to question, is God still at work? The truth is that our feelings and our situations are never a reliable standard for measuring God's faithfulness. Faith must rise above appearances, relying not on what is seen, but on who God is. Feelings are fleeting. They change from moment to moment, influenced by sleep, stress, and external events. Circumstances shift constantly, presenting victories one day and challenges the next. To depend on these as proof of God's faithfulness is to build on sand. True trust is not anchored in the temporary, it is anchored in the eternal, in the character and promises of God. While feelings fluctuate, God does not. While circumstances may deceive, God remains steadfast. Many people stop believing because they expect life to be fair or immediate. When results are delayed, patience wanes and doubt creeps in. But God's timing is perfect, even when it does not align with our desires. What appears as delay is often divine preparation, a season in which hearts are being refined, purposes are being clarified, and blessings are being positioned for maximum impact. Judging God by what we see today is short-sighted because we cannot yet perceive the fullness of His plan. Faith is choosing to trust in God's nature, not in the evidence before us. He is unchanging, reliable, and faithful to His word. Even when circumstances suggest otherwise, God's promises remain true. His track record does not depend on how life unfolds, it depends on His infinite wisdom and love. Trusting God through uncertainty demonstrates a deeper understanding of His faithfulness than relying on visible proof ever could. We often rely on proof because it feels safe. When life is unpredictable, we crave tangible evidence that God is working. But God calls His people into a faith that is active and intentional, a faith that steps forward even when the outcome is unclear. Abraham walked forward without seeing the child promised to him. Moses led a nation without knowing every detail of the journey. David faced giants with no guarantee of victory. In each case, faith prevailed because it trusted in the character of God rather than the circumstances at hand. Relying solely on feelings or circumstances leads to instability. Joy turns to despair at the first challenge. Hope fades with the first delay. Faith that depends on the visible is fragile. God, however, calls His children to a faith rooted in His promises, a faith that endures storms, setbacks, and silence. This faith sees beyond the temporary, looking instead to the eternal purposes of God, trusting that what He has begun in your life will be brought to completion. Judging God by circumstances is also unfair. Life will not always conform to our expectations. Trials, setbacks, and hardships are part of the journey, but they do not nullify God's promises. The same God who created the universe, who sustains life, and who orchestrates history is at work in your life. His methods may be mysterious, His timing may be hidden, but His faithfulness is unchanging. What feels like delay or difficulty today may be the very way God is arranging blessings for tomorrow. When you feel like giving up because circumstances look grim, remember that God's faithfulness is not defined by what happens around you. Trust in His nature, rely on His promises, and hold firm even when the path is unclear. Faith is not blind, it is confident, knowing that God is true to His word. Your feelings may fluctuate, your situations may challenge you, but God remains faithful, and that is the standard that never fails. Life often tempts us to define ourselves by what has already happened, by the chapters that are written, or by the mistakes we have made. It is easy to look back and say, "This is all there is for me," or to feel that our best days are behind us. But God sees your life differently. He does not evaluate you by your past failures, missed opportunities, or even by the hardships you have endured. He sees the full story, the story that is still unfolding, and He is actively writing the next chapters. Your story is far from over. You may feel stuck in a season that seems unending, trapped by circumstances, or weighed down by expectations and disappointments. It is tempting to conclude that the end has come, that there is nothing more to hope for. Yet the truth is that God is always at work, even when progress seems invisible. What appears stagnant on the outside may be a season of unseen growth, preparation, and positioning. The waiting is not in vain, and the struggle is not wasted. God's pen continues to move across the pages of your life, shaping a narrative far greater than you can imagine. Each day that you breathe is a sign that your story is still being written. Life continues not by chance, but by the careful orchestration of God's hands. Every sunrise, every small victory, every step forward is part of the unfolding plan. You may not yet understand the pattern, the purpose, or the outcome, but God does. He sees the threads of your life woven together in a way that your human eyes cannot comprehend. What feels like chaos to you is often divine order in motion. It is important to realize that your past does not define your future. Mistakes, failures, regrets, and even sins are chapters, not the conclusion. God specializes in redemption and restoration. He can take what is broken and transform it into something beautiful, meaningful, and powerful. The story is not over because of a misstep or a setback. It continues because God is patient, faithful, and committed to completing what He began in you. Hope is the anchor that keeps your story moving forward. Even in moments of despair, even when obstacles seem insurmountable, hope reminds you that there is more to come. It reminds you that the narrative of your life is not fixed by yesterday's circumstances or today's challenges. God is still at work behind the scenes, orchestrating events, aligning people, and opening doors in ways that you cannot yet see. The unseen work of God often precedes the visible breakthrough. There is also a lesson in resilience. When you trust that your story is ongoing, you learn to persevere through hardships, to press forward in faith, and to continue walking even when the path is unclear. Each step you take becomes part of the story, contributing to a greater purpose. Your life is a living testimony of endurance, faith, and the relentless pursuit of God's plan. The moments you fear are wasted are actually shaping you for the chapters ahead. Finally, the knowledge that your story is still being written brings perspective and courage. It frees you from the weight of regret and the illusion of finality. It reminds you that no matter what has happened, there is always room for growth, restoration, and new beginnings. God's work in your life is ongoing. The next chapter is waiting to be revealed, full of potential, promise, and divine purpose. You are alive, you are moving forward, and your story is far from complete. Every day is an opportunity for God to write something new, something greater, something miraculous in your life. You see failure. God sees growth. You see delay. God sees preparation. You see an ending. God sees a purpose unfolding. Some of you are standing in the middle of the storm, wondering if God hears your cries. Let me assure you, He hears every prayer. He sees every tear, and not one moment of your pain is wasted. The waiting is not punishment. The struggle is not rejection. The silence is not abandonment. God is working even when you cannot see it. God is moving even when you cannot feel it. Do not judge God's faithfulness by your circumstances. Judge it by the cross, where love was proven once and for all. My friend, if you still have breath in your lungs, God still has a plan for your life. If your heart is still beating, your purpose is still alive. You may have stumbled, but you are not disqualified. You may have fallen, but you are not finished. Get up again, trust again, believe again, because the same God who brought you through before will carry you through now. Stop giving up. Hold on to faith, hold on to hope. God is not finished with you. He is still writing your story. Amen.